to Mayfield Ranch. My name's Katie, and today I'm going to show you guys how I'm tying up my squash plant so I can trellis it up on the cattle panel. Let me show you what I've got going on. So I'm out here just tying up some of these squash plants. They've gotten pretty big. So a few feet, probably they've grown since last week. So I just want to try to, it doesn't really matter what way. If I want them to grow this way or if I want them to grow up, I kind of want this plant to grow up and over. So I just want to get it to grow through this cattle panel. So I'm just going to push it through and kind of gently try to navigate through this cattle panel here, move the leaves, and now it's stuck on another plant. And then I'm just going to bring it over here and try to bring it back through one of these other squares. I'm trying to do this without ripping off any other parts of the plant. I'll take its little tendrils and I'll just start curling it around one of the metal pieces, and that should take care of it. I have some twine out here so I can tie it up if I need to. Like there's one here. There's one piece here that doesn't quite reach. I think I will go ahead and take some twine and tie it up so it'll start growing up. So let me show you how I do that. So I've just got some basic garden twine here. And I'm just gonna cut a piece off of it. So I've got some to work with. So we'll see if we can't get this tied up. Okay, so I'm just gonna take this twine and tie a little knot just to give it a little bit of support. Now it's still very loose around the plant, and I'm just going to bring it up where I wanna tie it off. And I'm gonna tie another little knot up here. Now I should have left this a little bit longer to make it easier, but all I'm looking for is just to give this plant a little bit of support. Probably by next week, it will grow up and already be on its own and be holding. So let me show you what that looks like. Okay, so let me give you a closer look at what that looks like. So here's the twine that I put around. You can see that it's supporting it on the bottom, right? It's supporting it there, but there's room left in that loop so that if this vine grows, there's slack here. There's room left for it to grow. It's not going to cut it off. And then let me show you at the top. So it's just tied right there at the top. And that's it. And then this will grow up. So even right now I can try to get these tendrils right here just wrapped around one of these pieces. Now I try to be careful with it, but it will wrap itself around. So there we go. I was able to get this tendril kind of wrapped around. It's not perfect, but it'll take over on its own. And then this piece will continue to grow and it'll reach up and grow on this cattle panel. So that's what it looks like as I start to tie it up. And we've got one more little guy over here. So we've got this guy kind of growing. So I think I'd like to tie that up too. Otherwise it's just gonna grow along this bed. It's gonna mix with my tomatoes. And that's not maybe such a big deal, but I'd rather just have it grow up tall and utilize this vertical space. So let's get that one tied up also. Okay guys, so this is the little guy right here that we want to tie up. And it's growing this way. We want it to grow this way. So as I start to look at it, let me bring you in closer so I can show you. So as I start to lift up on this, I notice that its tendrils have already caught onto this rope right here, or this twine. So I'm gonna take those off. I'm probably just gonna break them off. Okay guys, so we've got honeybees that are out here working on pollinating already. So that's great because I'll take all the squash I can get. So I'm being careful to unwrap this first little tendril here. It'll be really easy for me to attach that to the wire if I unwind it. But the rest of these I'm just gonna snap off because I'm kind of in a hurry and I just want to get this tied up as quickly as possible so I can get on to the next garden task I have out here. Okay, so this first one I'm going to start by just tying the twine right on there. I'm being careful because the honeybees are working already this morning. So yesterday it was 108, I think, here. It was ridiculous is what it was. And so I wasn't super interested in being out in the garden working when it was that hot. So I thought, okay, I'll get out here super early. So I came out here at 5 o'clock this morning because I've got to beat the wasps out here or nothing's getting done. If the wasps are already out on the plants, they can have it. I mean, I'm done. Nothing's gonna get done out here. I have tomatoes that need to be trimmed. So I have a lot of things to do. So it's early this morning when I'm filming this. It's around, now it's probably about 6, and honeybees are already working. So we gotta get going, or I'm not gonna get the tomatoes trimmed again today, because as soon as it gets warm, the wasp will come out. So I've wrapped the twine around the plant, and it's loose enough that the plant has room to grow, but it's rigid enough that it'll provide with support. So I'm gonna grab this twine, I'm gonna wrap it around the cattle panel where I want to trellis this thing up. So we're gonna go ahead and just tie it up here, kind of try to navigate this plant because it's got so many vines growing here. So we put it up here. I'm going to tie this thing off. Okay, we're good to go. And then I'm just going to cut this excess because I can reuse this piece of twine. It's long enough. And there's more here that needs some attention. So for this one, I just tied it around 2 of the vines, and I'm going to just wrap it a couple times around one of the vines and try to see if I can reach the top here, which I can, and just tie that up so it'll start growing vertically. And that's what I'm looking for here. Perfect. All right, so let me give you a closer look at what that looks like. Okay, here's what our little squash plant looks like now from this side. So we've got that one kind of wrapped. It's on the cattle panel. This one's up already in the one we had. It was growing already. It's kind of growing over. And you can see all of it. It's healthy, it's growing. And now we've got it trained to grow vertically. So it is just starting to reach the top of the cattle panel. And once it does, we'll actually train it to grow this way over that cattle panel. I'll give you a up close look of what I did. So a couple of those vines I got together on this one and just tied them together. You can see in that loop there's plenty of space for the vine itself to grow and get larger without getting cut off. And I just wrapped that twine a couple times and tied it right up here at the top. Let me show you the other side of this squash. Okay guys, let me show you what this thing looks like. So we've got some flowers. This is what it looks like on this side. We've got it tied up there to that cattle panel. So several of the vines, I've just taken that twine and tied it up to the cattle panel. Now I've done this a couple times this week. This plant is growing really, really fast. So if you can see in our garden tours from week to week, if you look at a few of them, you can see how quickly this has grown. But the reason I'm tying it up there is I want to use this garden bed. I can use this space for other plants. I have to plant something out here pretty quickly. And if I don't tie this up, it'll just take over this bed. It'll trail over the edge. It'll just actually come to the ground out here, which I don't want. So that's the purpose behind trying to grow it vertically, is so I can just utilize that vertical space for all that vine and utilize this really good soil to grow something else. So let me show you. So here's one here actually that I didn't finish. So see how it's growing off of that and it's growing towards my peppers? I don't want that. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab that last vine and bring it up and just attach it to the trellis, teach it to grow vertically. So let me do that real quick. Okay, so we got that tied up over there, just stretched it. Now I did stretch that one pretty tight, and let me tell you why. Is I want that vine to kind of act as the barrier for these other vines because I do not want them growing in my peppers. I don't want them crowding on my peppers. I don't want them shading my peppers. So this squash is actually a volunteer from last year. So we don't know if it's going to be true to type. I just thought I would give it a go, let it grow and see what it was. And I think it's going to be spaghetti squash. I don't know if it's going to be true to type. We don't know if this is even going to end up producing food that we're going to eat. But I definitely do not want it crowding out my peppers. So I did pull that last string really tightly. And typically I'm not doing that. Typically I'm leaving it pretty loose, plenty of room for it to grow. So when I tied the knot around, let me show you. When I tied the knot in the twine around the plant, I didn't tie it very tightly there. There's room for that vine to grow and get larger without getting cut off by that twine. But when I put tension on that twine over on the cattle panel, I pulled it quite firmly and I put a lot of tension on that because I wanted that vine, it's an exterior vine right now on the plant, I wanted it to act kind of like a barrier. The other vines will be able to grow on it and I can twist them through, but I definitely want to keep this squash plant from continuing to grow towards my peppers. I want to keep it over there in its space, let it grow vertically. Now it can go wild. Once it gets up on that cattle panel, it can go wherever it wants to go and it's up out of the way. But I just want to keep it off of the other plants that are surrounding it. And I also just wanted to keep that part of the garden bed free because perhaps I will finally get out here and plant the other things I've been needing to plant. So we've got flowers. This squash plant's doing well. It's got flowers. It's super happy. And let me see. I've seen a couple little baby squashes on here, which is what makes me think it's spaghetti squash. Let me see if I can find those for you guys now. Okay, so I see a couple babies. So here's one of the little baby squashes. So I think that this is going to be spaghetti squash. That's what I think it is. There's another one. If you guys can see right there. There's another baby. So I think that one was pollinated. I hope so. This one, flower's still open. I think this is where the bees were earlier. So hopefully we'll get this pollinated. There's another little flower. So this is looking pretty good. This is what it looks like this week. Okay, you guys, that's how I trellis my squash plants up and grow them vertically. Hopefully you found this informative and you're able to use this out in your garden and grow along with us. See you guys next week.